I'm so glad to be on this platform on a topic which I'm going to admit that I know very little about. I hear a great deal about it, and I hope I'm not the only person that just when I feel I'm beginning to understand AI, something happened and it moves along, and I'm again once more confounded. So I'm delighted to have three people here who are looking, investigating, finding out more, and who can tell us more about AI and in particular its impact on artistic freedom. We have three great panelists. We have then Zinal Al-Ansari here, an Indonesian filmmaker and screenwriter, who is looking at how filmmakers in Indonesia are using and adapting to AI and comparing its progress with other countries, issues around the responsible use of AI, guidelines, and how to adopt it in a fair way. We also have Dr. Juni Tan. You're a senior research associate at the Kazana Research Institute, and you have a focus on digital rights and AI governance. And this is in a world where AI, as we mentioned, is completely changing, and how it is impacting on the creative industry. And you'll be talking about a research study that you are doing on how to identify how artists are dealing with these rapid changes. And then we also have Melissa Lin Shihui. You're a lawyer specializing in law in the digital sphere, so you're constantly keeping on top of things, I hope. And you are researching or building a database, as I understand it, on featuring cases of creators whose work is being stolen, abused, and appropriated and misused. So really interested in hearing from the three of you, and also particularly for your very practical insights and challenges. So first, Melissa, can you tell us about your work?
Thank you very much, Sarah. So hi everyone, I'm Melissa. So I'm a lawyer, a traditionally very boring profession, you would think, especially compared to very creative people like you guys. But as is with all the industries right now enabled by tech, it has become quite interesting. Why interesting? Because the law has been changing, morphing in order to accommodate to the quick pace of change that we have right now globally. And I think one of the legal philosophy that I want to highlight here, which is coincidentally also my favorite philosophy because I'm a nerd, and that is that the law is a mirror of society. And why that matters is because the law is not here to sorry, to anticipate the consequences of certain developments in our society. So, for example, the digitalization of everything right now. Okay, before even AI, right? We are not here to I mean the law is not here to predict what are the consequences and then create laws around that those so-called predictions and assumptions. So, which is why this particular project actually um, came from because in Malaysia right now there are a few new acts that are being enacted very quickly, and it has to do with online. So, for example, the Online Safety Act and our National AI Road Plan as well. So, we want to know whether these acts or these laws, legislations that are being made, are they really targeted to actual problem statements that are faced by creators? So this project came about because of like number one, that nerdy curiosity I have. And then number two, also because I want to know um whether the problems that are being faced by creators is something that is so new that we need new laws to govern it. So I'll give you an example. For example, before this, okay, think about bullying before this. Okay, bullying, let's say in school, when we were in high school, okay, when I was in high school, we didn't have Facebook. And bullying would be something very physical. You may push me, I may fall down and have I break an arm, for example, right? And that could be a crime, right? That could be assault, battery, whatever. But what tech does is, to me, is that it actually amplifies the problems or the values that we already have. So bullying becomes cyberbullying. Then what? But what are the actual differences between these two crimes or civil injury? And do we really need new laws, or can we improve on the or amend on the existing ones? So those are the questions that I have to be answered. So why this project matter is because creators, to me, in this project, we are defining creators as artists who are publishing their work publicly. Because at the end of the day, right now, social media, no matter what our the pros and cons against it, we do need to use social media for our business, for our rice bowl, right? So that make creators a very vulnerable group, because you have to publish it out. But when you publish out, you face a very real danger of your work being stolen. And you don't, number one, don't even know who would steal it. Number two, what would they use those like stolen assets for? And you wouldn't even know where, how they distribute it, how many people, get it, and what are the consequences towards you. Yeah, so this is why the project matters. And the way I am going about this is to create a case database via two methods as of now. Firstly is a public survey. So I had a Google form which is still active. This project is still ongoing. Secondly is through gatherings with communities. So one of the community that I work very closely with is Animagaki. I don't know if you guys know. Do you guys know? No? Yay! It's Malaysia's biggest annual gathering of cosplayers. Yeah. So, and why cosplayer, right? Oh, so interesting. So the first creator that I found out about, right? So the first creator that I spotlighted is a cosplayer. So first of all, cosplayers already have that discrimination, that stigma against them, against that particular, I don't really want to say industry, but that particular community, right? And this creator, she is a cosplayer and she posts pictures of her in cosplay costume on social media. And because of that, I think amplified by the stigma against cosplayers, her images were actually stolen and then edited using deep, AI, generative AI, to create nudes of her. And then it was sold on Tumblr. And the screenshot that you see here right now on the right side is basically the description. And if you look at the very end, right, request nudes, 2 ringgit each. So do you remember the Kulai case last year? There are these school boys in Kulai who took pictures of their female schoolmates and then made, using AI generated nude pictures of that. And they also sold it for 2 ringgit. I don't know, is this like a market price? And they also have this thing at the bottom, request nudes, 2 ringgit. So yeah, so this is what happened now. So this particular cosplayer, I think that she's very brave. But I think that courage also comes from, number one, knowledge, number two, support system. And this is what I'm trying to achieve here as well, together with Armas, right? We want to be able to give support to creators so that you know that when this thing happen to you, uh, especially at the face of discrimination, to not cower, to actually find help because you are not in the wrong, right? And number two is that, another impact for this project, right, is to be able to tell creators that you are not in the wrong. Because a lot of people, for example, artists, right, they think that, sorry, not artists, digital illustrators, yeah, digital illustrators, they may think that their work are derivatives because they take inspiration from other artists and things like that. But that does not mean that your work is not worth protecting. So what this case database aims to do is also to show you what are the cases that are going around in Malaysia, real people, real Malaysians being impacted, and what can you do about it. So this creator, she made a police report. Sorry, she made a police report, and it was actually published on mainstream media. She did face a lot of backlash after that, even after the police report, because again, the cyberbullying and hate speech, yeah, because of the stigma and discrimination. So, um, legally, what can you do about it? Right. So I think that is what we are trying to explore in this case database lah. What are the damages that are caused? The second one, the second creator is someone that you probably know very well. This is Carol Aming. Yeah, she he's so this is very interesting because if you look at the picture of him here, right, this is actually his video style. This is the way he has been making videos on TikTok. I think before this scam lah, he will have something at the background and then he will have his floating head. So they use that artistic style of his likeness, edited his voice to scam people. Pay 79 ringgit to support my because my factory got flooded. So the consequences of this, I think a lot of the consequences are always reputational, because you can't imagine when you go to that video, right? There are actually people who don't believe that it's a scam. They think that Carol Amin actually scammed them. So yeah, that is irreversible. Oh yeah, this last one is very interesting because um this is actually what's happening in Malaysia right now. And obviously not Anthropic lah. But people who are using AI plagiarism tools, they run your works through the tool to know whether you use AI to make your work or not. But by doing that, they are training the AI model. And then they will say that, yes, you are actually plagiarizing. Yeah, because the AI tool is now trained by you. So very convoluted. Um, it's at the end of my presentation. Please take a picture of this. I had created a guidebook to show you, like, to tell you what you can do to protect yourself and stuff. So please take a picture of this, and you can follow me for like more updates on the campaign and what's next. Thank you.
So, big congratulations to Melissa to cover such a complex topic so quickly in some cases. And I'm really intrigued by your inclusion of cosplayers as artistic freedom. And we have some similarities with people who dress up in other countries, like in Africa and elsewhere, that I can talk more about. And also, your comment is, do we really need to make new laws for what is already an existing crime, or just amending them? So a lot to be unpacked there. So very quickly, I'm going to move on to Janine. Oh, it's Zen. Sorry, all the wrong order. If I do it in the wrong order, it all goes wrong. Sorry, Zen.
Okay, it's okay. Okay, good morning, everyone. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Zen Ansori. I'm lecturer from Telkom University, study Film and Animation Study Program, School of Creative Industry. And thank you for Freedom Film Festival for the opportunity to join this panel presentation. This is my still early research about AI in Indonesian film production. Today, I want to frame AI is not only as a technological tool, but as a condition that is reshaping the term of creative production. My argument is simple. AI doesn't only change how films are made, it also changes the rules around who can participate and who can compete and who become more vulnerable in the production process. In that sense, I can operate as what I call invisible regulation, not censorship in the conventional sense, but a new layer of technical tool, legal, contractual, and platform-based conditions that quietly shape creative work. So, and this presentation follow a film value chain perspective from development to circulation. So through that lens, I want to make 4 points. First, I will briefly outline the global and Indonesian pattern of AI adoption. The second, I will identify the risk cluster for creative communities. And then the third, I will propose several practice safeguards. And the fourth, I will explain why this research matter both academically and practically for the future film production. So at the global level, AI is already entering many stages of filmmaking. Like we can see the slide from the slide. It appears in development until localization. It helps with us tasks such as ideation and then editing support, visual effect, assistant, audience targeting, and multilingual distribution. At the same time, it intensifies dispute around copyright, authorship, consent, labor, and cultural representation. The operational adoption is moving faster than core creative adoption from this slide. And I want to share how Indonesian pattern, still early and uneven. So Indonesia reflect this tension in specific way, but based on my research, AI adoption in Indonesian film production is still early, uneven, and tactical. It is not absent, but it's selective. Practitioners mostly use AI where it helps save time to reduce cost without transforming the entire workflow. So there's three main cluster are visible. The first is pitching visualization, and the second, drafting support, and third, selective post production support. But the most visible uses pitching visualization, drafting support, and selective post production in Indonesia. And what remains limited is the larger integration of AI into distribution strategy, localization at scale, and audience analytic. That's why I argue that competitiveness gap is not only about the production speed, it is also about the circulation capacity and governance readiness. So if we map across the film value chain, we can share where it enters the workflow and where invisible rules begin to emerge from development until distribution. From this slide, but the important point is this: the real friction often appears at the transitional point from idea to production and from production to circulation. At this point, the issue of rights, disclosure, ownership, consent, and platform visibility become more pressing. In the larger companies can often manage these demands through legal team, control infrastructure, and internal standard. But for the smaller creator, often cannot. So uncertainty itself become a barrier to participation. The next slide, I want to talk about from the situation. Uh, I try to identify for major risk cluster. The first is consent and likeness. So like voice in an image tool create vulnerabilities around permission, reuse, and identity control. This is not only about extreme case like deepfakes. It can happen in ordinary production practice. For example, when a voice is used for testing without consent, when the likeness is reused beyond the original agreement, or when synthetic media replaces paid human for work without clear negotiation. The second is intellectual property and training data uncertainty. So many creators still do not know what the model was trained on, who owns an AI-assisted concept image, or who is responsible if, in, if infringement claim appear later. This risk hits small creator first, but because uncertainty is expensive. So we're going to the third risk is bias and cultural misrepresentation. Many AI systems train on dominant dataset that are not grounded in Indonesian language, face, aesthetic, or narrative tradition. As a result, they can flatten nuance and produce generic and stereotypical output. So this is not only a script issue, it is also affect circulation because recommender system and marketing system may reinforce visibility for already dominant form while making local or marginal voice harder to surface. And the fourth risk is labor, precarity, and aesthetic homogenization. AI may increase pressure on creative roles such as storyboard artists, visual effect workers, and voice talent. At the same time, it can normalize what we may call the default AI look, where visual style and narrative structure become increasingly standardized. This matters because cinema is not only an industry product, it is also cultural form. So if I narrow aesthetic diversity, then it narrowed the space for local stories, distinctive visual language, and vulnerable voices. So what should we do? I propose three practical safeguards. The first, consent protocol for voice and likeness. A simple consent log should record who approved what, for what purpose, and for how long. And the second, disclosure record. Projects should consistently record which AI tools were used, at what stage, and how human decisions shape the final output. So disclosure should not to be treated as a punishment. It should be treated as a normal professional transparency. The third, IP documentation. The purpose is not to slow down production, but to make production more defensible and more accountable. So beyond this safeguard, there are also two larger ecosystem action that matter. One is applied training. So film communities need practical AI literacy, not hype. They need training in workflow use, evaluation, data awareness, and risk sensitivity. The other is shared infrastructure. If access to compute, cloud tools, and legal support remain concentrated in a few institutions, then AI will deepen inequality instead of expanding opportunity. This brings me to practical and academic impact. Practically, this research helped film production move toward a clear understanding of where AI can support the workflow and where human authorship, ethical judgment, and cultural responsibility must remain central. Academically, this research contributes to a broader discussion of AI not only as a technical tool, but as a condition of cultural production. This is why I also include teaching practice in the presentation. In the film and animation program where I teach, we apply internal AI use guidelines student work. Student may you use AI for exploration of conceptual iteration and early drafting, but they may not submit raw AI output as a final work. They must critically revise, interpret, and document their process. They must disclose what tools they use and how they use them. And for me, this is matter because the classroom can become a small prototype for future industry ethic. It is one place where we can turn abstract safeguard into everyday habit. And the last point, I want to close with a simple point. The future of film production is not choice between human creativity and artificial intelligence. So the real challenge is how define the boundaries of AI in a ways that strengthen to production without weakening labor rights and cultural specificity. So this is why this research matters. It helps us identify where AI can be productively integrated, where safeguards are needed, and why the future of filmmaking still depend of human judgment, ethical responsibility, and cultural imagination. So today, AI is another chapter in that long history of adaptation. So if we use carefully, AI should not become a replacement for filmmakers. It should become a supporting infrastructure for filmmakers. And the strongest way forward is when academic research and industry practice work together. Research can clarify the risk, and practice will test the limits. This is how AI can support the future of film production without erasing the people, cultures, and creative labor that make cinema keep meaningful and keep powerful. Thank you.
Thank you, Zen. It's really important of how we monitoring, follow, teach, and also record the impacts of AI, both positive and negative, but keeping an eye open for how this is done. I think it's going to be a constantly evolving situation. So, Juni, your own comments and research on this, I think, will contribute to that.
Hi, good morning. My name is Jun-Yi. I'm from Khazanah Research Institute. And today I'd like to introduce a project that we're starting soon on AI, art, and connection. I got to warn you that it's a 45-minute presentation that was compressed into 10 minutes. So I've structured it into the important bits first, and then details to come like at the end as appendix. We probably won't have time for the details, but yeah, just to show you. So yeah, we are a nonprofit policy research institute. We do policy research on various different topics. And we have a digital and tech policy team, and all our research is available on the website. So here we go on the important bits. So this is actually a 2-year study that we are at the last stages of approval. By that I mean I need one more okay, and then we're good to go. And so I wanted to lead with this movie. I don't know if you guys have heard of it, have watched it even, maybe a show of hands. Right. So fun facts about this movie is that it is the first 100% AI generated film globally to secure a theatrical release. It was shown in Malaysian cinemas in 2026 January. And it is actually not doing all that bad if you compare it to the local films that screened for 14 days, kind of mid-range. This is compared to 2025 films, and it's actually a Malaysian Singaporean film. I brought this up because from November 2022, where we had the first large language model, till now 2026, where we can actually produce AI generated film. We've come a really long way, very fast. And the other point was that this is not the end of something. It is actually the beginning, because it's actually a seed for further development where some local agencies such as MDEC and FINAS have actually appointed the executive producer of that movie to train our local businesses and students. So being that things are moving so quickly, we find that there's actually very little research locally on AI's impacts on our arts industry and ecosystem. So, which is where KRI is hoping to make a contribution by doing the study on trying to understand these research questions, which are how are artists or creatives in Malaysia disrupted by AI, and how are they adapting? So we're looking at their AI use, their attitudes towards AI. What are the societal impacts of such disruptions? And also what policy support do the artists and the arts industry actually require in the AI era? So I am going to sort of take you through our research framework. We are looking at it in 2 stages. The first is questionnaires and focus groups on individual artists. And then the second one is actually interviews for artistic platforms, or at the network level, people who organize festivals, organize conferences such as this, educators, researchers, and so on. What they think are the societal impacts of AI. And this is kind of how it will look like. The first one, on individual artist level, is just important to understand that as to provide the baseline figures, right? We know that the Malaysian government's very into AI in all sectors, and the creative industry is also one of those sectors. And this year, the Comms Ministry is actually reviewing the National Creative Industry Policy. So there could be some advocacy that we can do there. So we're hoping to do this through a questionnaire, online survey with target respondents of 1,000. And then after that, focus group discussions for qualitative insights, and this to be done in 2026 to have like a baseline data as soon as we can. So, and then the stage number 2, I think actually is more interesting to me. After establishing what's going on at the individual artist level, what we want to do is actually understand what are the societal impacts or relational impacts when the arts industry or arts ecosystem or communication environment is disrupted by AI, right? So for this, we hope to speak to maybe around 30 key stakeholders, including policy advocates, museums, venues, galleries, bands, and all that, to understand maybe with their hub level vision why they're doing what they're doing and what is going to be disrupted at the societal level. Timeline is 2027. So why we want to do this is really because we believe that there are social functions for arts or cultural and creative practices, right? So while it's very important to make sure that our artists are equipped for the AI era, to adopt technologies that will ease themselves and to understand the risks at their individual level, we actually also want to understand if, say, they don't survive, or if our art quality goes down, what happens to society? And that from literature, we found that there are like 4 social functions of art. And of course, we will ask more when we do our interviews. But art generally can function as a social infrastructure. Like just now, we just heard on how cinema brings people together, for instance, in the process of consuming art. But also there's also the process of creating art that in the case of communal and socially engaged arts can actually bring people together, right? And this is important for social cohesion. Secondly, especially in the case of Malaysia, we have many cultures, many languages, many religions and all that. And a lot of times we don't understand each other. And therefore, we have misunderstandings, and that's not great when we need to live together. So art actually exists as spaces for dialogue and understanding each other, right? And to trust each other better. And the third one is to sort of effect this sense of belonging and identity in our communities, and to sort of show each other that actually we're all human, we're all vulnerable. I'm quite nervous here, for instance. So that is to sort of bring us together, right, as a society. And fourthly, I wanted to make a point that the relational connections is not only horizontal to our peers, but also as a point of continuity to our lineage, our traditions, and even where we live, to our nature and the wider world. So all of these we can see as social functions of art, and what happens if they are disrupted. So here are some of the key assumptions that we have going into the study. One is that creative and cultural practices bring not only economic but also social value to society. And because we always talk about creative industry, the word industry indicates the economic side of things, but we are hoping to really embed the social value side of things into the conversation. And that necessitates us to recognize that the survival and well-being of artists and creatives is actually quite important. And AI can either help that or take us along the other path, right? So it's like a double-edged sword. And the other point is that authenticity, quality, and diversity of art is also important for the aforementioned social functions of arts. So the impacts of AI and society on the arts and society is likely to be very nuanced, actually. So we don't want to take the idea on AI is necessarily good or necessarily bad. The answer really lies in between. It really, like what Zen was talking about, how you actually employ it will make a huge difference on how the arts is impacted and therefore society, right? So here are the future further elaborations, which I will breeze through because I have like 1 minute. So concepts and definitions, we're actually using the UNESCO's framework for cultural statistics as the backbone because it's human-centric and also because it's interoperable with DOSM, our Department of Statistics in Malaysia. And this is how they have cut the cake on cultural domains and also domains that are like wider. So we will basically use UNESCO's, and here is just highlighting DOSM's sort of interpretation of the UNESCO's FCS. And here is just some statistics on how the Malaysia's CCI, culture and creative industry, has contributed to our GDP and the employment as well. So the main sectors are books and press, design and creative services, visual arts and crafts, and also audiovisual. So film is there lah. So I want to emphasize this, that there are what we've put into 3 buckets of AI use in the arts. Very quickly, experimental is where you use AI to sort of push your art further. And assistive is where you automate away the drudgery, the tedious parts, so that you concentrate on the creative side. And surrogate is what we call like total replacement, right? So you get where we're trying to get with this, that different types of usage will have different types of impact. So yes, that's it. Thank you.
Yeah. Congratulations, Ginny, and in fact, congratulations to all 3 of you for tackling such a complex subject in such a short time. You will all be here for people to ask further questions. I think I have 5 minutes or 10 minutes. I think I'll do as the previous session is to get 3 questions from the floor and see if we can answer those in the time that we have. If people could put their hands up.
I am Hassan from Indonesia. There have been several cases in Indonesia, especially in universities and also research institutions, where we are approached by what my friends and I call like these AI salesmen that offer their language models to collect the data on indigenous communities and remote communities. Usually they do it, they offer it in the name of access and also for correct representation. But again, most of us know there's something fishy going on. So what are the important considerations when dealing with such offers? Is it really all positive? Is it really all useful? Or what are the safeguards that we can take regarding that? Thank you.
Hi, my name is Carmen. This is primarily a question for Melissa. Actually, I'm very interested in your talk, but I know you don't have enough time to talk more about it. I'm more interested in are there attempts to use international laws regarding likeness and AI use to transplant it in a Malaysian context? Will there be a lot of like local nuances that will make international law difficult to be implemented? That's one. And my second one is regarding like the scams and all that. Do you think there's more of an inclination to find and catch the scammer rather than take action on the AI company that makes the tools that the scammer utilizes to do such things? Thank you.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Dr. Ashwin. I'm from Ansara Creatives. We come from Kuching, Sarawak. We delve in the realm of like cultural documentaries and cultural films, as well as also a little bit of tech as well, where we actually push for usage of some of the AI tools to basically speed up some of the processes and trying to find the right balance between that. So my question is, as a continuation to the previous question as well, because right now in the realm of cybersecurity, there is a usage of like AI to help detect AI as well. Currently, they're using this to stop scams in the fintech industry. They're using this also in like the real estate, property industry, renewable energy and stuff like that. Do you foresee that this might be something that potentially translates into, the creative scene as well, where we use AI to detect AI? Because I think there'll be quite an interesting thought process behind that as well. Yeah, that's all. Thank you.
Okay, where do we start? I think I'll start with Melissa. We have 4 questions. One is on the international laws regulating abuse of AI, and also interesting questions around cybersecurity, security, scamming, and how do we deal with those people? And I get them all the time as well, coming to me, offering to give analyses and data on artistic freedom. So far, I've said no.
Wow, interesting questions. I don't know which one to do first. Okay, I'm going to do the scam first because that's the easiest. Okay, for the scam one, it's very, very, very incredibly interesting because through the public survey that I've done, right, I think scam is like one of the bigger categories of um crime committed with this AI misuse. So people are using AI to create scams and fraud other people, right? So the question on like the perpetrators and stuff, that is literally in my policy report. Sorry, because um the okay, I think the problem is not just about this AI tool, right? Even before this AI tool came out, it was already very difficult for us to catch perpetrators for financial scams. So, like I said again, tech just amplify the problems that we have. So, yeah, so with this AI thing, we have several questions. So, first of all, do our law enforcement organizations, do they have the proper tools to find these people? First of all, with the telephony scam, and then secondly, now with an AI element added to it, do we have the tools? Basically, do we have the resources? That's the question that we have. With regards to the international law, right? Very, very interesting. Right. So I think even internationally, the one that we really want to like that we really want recognized would be the right of our likeness. right? So Denmark actually has made that into like a law in Denmark already. Are we able to bring that to Malaysia though, is the question. So when it comes to rights, it is not like it's not an act. It's not an act to say that, oh, you have rights to whatever, whatever. It's not that. It is something that we actually got to test in court. So that is why it's very important. However, could be financially challenging, and also you will need a lot of support around this, where artists actually have to take a stand and bring this up to the courts to enforce your rights. Basically, that is like the most simple answer that I can give. Yeah.
Would you like to add to that,
Yes.
Ginny, and then afterwards?
So I just want to comment on the AI detection thing because it's quite interesting. So I think one thing that we have to be wary of is false positives. And the idea that most of the AI detection tools actually don't work very well on like low resource languages outside of English and say Chinese, and you know, some of the ones that are commonly used languages might be better resourced. But for us, it might actually give us answers that simply are not correct. So that is dangerous, because then, of course, you have like flack and public backlash on innocent artists who may not have used AI, but are accused as AI users. So for that, I think what Zen had presented just now provides actually some pathway forward for artists to adopt some practices so that they can preempt all of these. So, like for instance, AI disclosures would be good for transparency, and also the process log, I think, is also quite important. And that is really, if there are questions, then you can defend, basically. Yeah. So that's what I want to say.
Yeah, I try to following my implemented in my campus. Yeah, it's like in my internal document we have like using no AI for the student work, and the second like AI assisted idea generation, and the third AI assisted editing, and the fourth AI task completion and with evaluation, and point five with full AI. So from the classroom, there were penalties for violation, ranging from warning and grade deduction to academic disciplinary action. So perhaps this is an just example of how the community or artists can establish about the standard to the protect creativity without like stifling the experimentation.
Thank you very much. I think we are going to have to wrap up here, which is a shame, but we will have more discussion there. Just to say that I have, for the first time, been presented with a contract writing a report for the Council of Europe, and I have a form that I have to fill in where I have to indicate where I have used AI, which is really interesting. And it also brings me the questions of when is it appropriate to use AI? I have used AI for certain things. So that's realistic. But also, from what I'm seeing, is that measures to protect from scamming tends to be towards business and finance and not towards creatives. So it's very important that the creative community, like here, is take on the studies and the laws and the suggestions, and to make sure that creative rights are also there within the AI spheres. But thank you very much to the three of you, and looking forward to seeing more event panels later today. Thank you.